Hi there. Thanks so much for coming to paint with me today. We are going to make a cute little camper, and we're going to start with our supply list. The first thing you need is a canvas, and I usually buy my canvases at Michael's. This is a gallery wrapped heavy duty canvas, is what it's called. And the difference is the back. On a regular canvas like you would buy maybe at Walmart, there's not going to be this much detail in the backing. It's just going to be wrapped on top of the wood, and there will be a staple there. Let me see if I have one close by. Yeah. The back of this canvas is just stapled, if you can see this. Just wrapped and stapled there. A gallery wrapped canvas is a little fancier, and it's a little sturdier also. And it also has a thicker width here on the sides, whereas one of these canvases would have a really thin or slim line. You can also get canvases that are the gallery wrapped that are not as thick, so the backing would look like this, but the sides would not be quite as wide. Okay, so you need a canvas. This one is an 8x10, and you need paint. I really like the Deco Art craft paint. I think you can get this at just about any craft store. You can get it at Walmart. Well, I don't know if they have it at Walmart or not. I know they have it at Michael's, and you can also order it online if you would like to. But the colors that I'm using are bubblegum pink. This one's apple barrel. It's not the Deco Art, but it's just turquoise. And I have snow white and lamp black. So you just need 4 colors of paint. I've got pink, turquoise, then the black and white. Okay, you also need some sort of glue sealer like Mod Podge, and I usually use the matte version because once you put that on top of your canvas, it's not going to be really shiny and sticky. You could also use a more professional type varnish or medium. This is by Liquitex, and this is a gloss, so it's going to have a sheen to it. Actually, I prefer the Mod Podge myself. Also, you need some gesso, and gesso is a surface preparation, and it seals and provides what they call a tooth, so that if you're trying to paint over paper, you can put some of this on top of it, and it's going to make your paint stick to the paper better, and the paper won't suck up the paint like it would if it was just the regular paper. You can get, this is white gesso, that's what I normally use, but you can also get clear if you would like to try it. Okay, you're also going to need some sort of scrapbooking paper or craft paper. I'll show you some of mine. This one is my favorite one right now. I think I picked this up at Hobby Lobby. It's barnwood. Lots of different patterns that looks like old and distressed wood. So you're going to need some sort of paper. This is another one of my favorites. And to go with our color scheme, I have chosen the yellow polka dot barnwood to go with my pink and turquoise camper that I'm going to paint. Okay, you're also going to need some sort of stencil. I found these plastic ones at a craft store. I can't remember where I got it now, but I use these polka dots all the time, and I really like these squares also. But if you don't have a stencil, you can use anything. You can even use like a toilet paper or paper towel ring. You can dip that in the paint and make patterns on your canvas with that. You could use a straw if you have a straw. And you can also use, I've used this before, dip the end of your paintbrush in paint and it will make polka dots also. Okay, so we also need brushes. I've got just an assortment of different kinds of brushes. That's a stenciling brush. I'm kind of rough on my brushes. They look terrible. This one is my favorite brush, and it's full of stiff paint, but it still works really well for the way that I do things. Palette knives. If you would like to use a palette knife, you can. You don't have to, but that's something that's optional. You're also going to need an ink pad for stamping your words on your canvas, and you're going to need stamps like this, just rubber stamps, alphabet stamps. I've got some that are small like this, and then I have a few that are large. So it's up to you how you do this, but I'm going to have a few small words and 2 large words on my painting. And I just learned this recently. If you have enough stamps and you would like to do this, you can go ahead and spell out the word that you're going to use and then take some masking tape and stick those together so that when you stamp it on your canvas, it will all be together and easier to keep in line. But sometimes that's not going to work because, for example, I need to spell the word not, and I also need to spell the word home, so I need the O in both words, so I can't really, I could tape them together and untape them and then tape them back together again if I wanted to. Okay, so you're going to need the stamps and the ink pad, the masking tape if you want to use it for that. And also in this piece I'm going to use a butterfly, and I will give you a link on the page here for you to find these free images on a website called thegraphicsfairy.com. And what I'm going to do is cut it out and Mod Podge it onto my canvas as I'm painting. Sometimes you can find butterflies in your scrapbooking paper. For instance, this was a page in a scrapbook paper notebook. This was another one. You can find the different things here that don't have too much distortion there and use those. This was a good page that had some good butterflies and moths on it. So you can either go and download and print these from your printer yourself, or you may have some in your scrapbook paper that you buy already. Okay, you're also going to need some doilies. I found these at Michael's. They're a little bit different from just a regular doily, which would look like this. This is a giant one, but this would be just like a regular paper doily that you would find. You could find these in the baking, cake decorating areas at Walmart or even Michael's, and they're really cheap. They come like 50 in a pack, I believe. But these are just special decorative ones that they had over in the stickers and scrapbooking stamps and things like that at Michael's, and I'm going to use that. So my color scheme for this one is going to be yellow, pink, and turquoise. Okay, and also you're going to need some scissors to cut out your butterfly if you use a butterfly like this on your canvas. And I don't have scissors, so let me try to find them. Okay, so I found my scissors. And you have teenage girls in your house, lots of things go missing. Okay, so I think that's all of our supply list that we need. So let's get started. Get my things put together. I'm going to turn my canvas this way for this one. And I'm going to start by using the Mod Podge to get my papers on background. So this is going to be the background. I've got some little pieces, and then I have my larger piece here. And instead of just putting this down and making one big piece, I'm going to tear it and put it on a little bit at a time. And it's going to be really random. So just start with these two pieces. By the way, you may want to use a cheap sponge brush for your Mod Podge. I ruined a lot of brushes using them because they stiffen after you've used them if you don't wash them out really well. This is just a cheap brush, so I'm just gonna use it. And I put it underneath, and then I put a good bit on top. I'm gonna tear some of this. Do it the same way, put some on the back. And smooth it down and put more on top. This may stick because I put it on top of the wet. Good. And you may get some bubbles, so you can use your finger and try to smooth it down. The smaller your pieces are that you put on the background, the easier it's going to be to smooth out the bubbles that you get underneath. If you try to put one really big piece down all at once, sometimes that makes it bubble up and wrinkle a little bit more. And this dries pretty fast, so once you get most of your paper put down, you'll just need to let it dry for just a few minutes, and then you can start to work on top of it. You can also use a hair dryer to get it to dry somewhat faster. I'm going to put a big piece here on the side. Okay. There's no right or wrong when it comes to putting your paper on here. Just do it however you like to do it. Make sure you get your edges really well, because they will come up and they'll stiffen, but they'll just stick out. They won't be glued down. Okay. Put this. Just put a piece right there. And some of this is going to be covered up with your painting on top. So once you start like this, you don't really know exactly what all's going to show and what's not once you start painting on top of it. I see some bubbles coming up in this. I'm just going to smooth it down with my fingers. And Mod Podge is washable, soap and water, so it's okay to get messy with it. Use your hands. See, this was a big piece, and so it's got more bubbles in it than my smaller pieces have had. Okay. And put another piece right there. I'm going to let this piece come down over the edge. See how it's coming down here. Okay. Then I have just a few little bitty spots there, so I'm going to cover those up like this. And there's still a white spot there, but I'm just going to leave it because I'll probably paint on top of that anyway. Okay, so got our background started now. Make sure you rinse your brush really well to get that Mod Podge out of it. I used to keep a really small glass of water, like cup of water here to wash my brushes out. And then I realized I need a lot of water. So I started using a huge Tupperware, it's not really Tupperware, plastic tub from the dollar store, and it works really well. I keep an old towel underneath it so that I can just wipe my brushes off really quickly. Okay. We're letting our background dry for just a few minutes before we start the next step. I'm going to let you catch up if you didn't work quite as quickly as I did to get all of your pieces on. I'm going to let you have a little bit of time to catch up with that while my background dries. Okay, the next thing we're going to do is work on adding a little bit of color and a few more pieces to the background here. I'm going to paint the edges of my canvas black, so I'm going to go ahead and start with the black. You can paint the edges while this part starts really drying, and you can watch it and try to keep rubbing out those bubbles. Okay. I just turn it up on its side and quickly paint over the edges here. Another thing I like to do around my edges is pull it down just a little bit, and it gives it a little antique look around the edges of my canvas. Sometimes I do this last, but on this piece I'm doing it first. And you might want to check the back to make sure you get it all the way down that little groove there. Okay. And when I paint on the front, I may cover up some of this that I've pulled down here. So if that happens, I can just go back and do that again later. Touch that up at the end if I need to. And see where I've got this coming over. I'm not going to paint over that, I'll paint around it. Okay, and pull down just a tiny bit. Doesn't take very much. If you don't want to do that part, you don't have to, because if you're afraid that you're going to mess up your background, then you don't have to pull it down. Just make a straight line across, just like this. And it would look just like that. I also have done this with brown paint on the edges of some of my canvases, some of my paintings, and it gives it sort of an antique look. So I like things that look old. Okay, so now we've got our edges done, and we're going to wash our brush out. Okay, next I think I'm going to go ahead and place my doily where I want it to be, but I'm only going to do half of one. So I got to decide how far down I want it to come on my canvas, and then about right there I'm just going to take it and I'm going to tear it across. Doesn't have to be exact. And then I'm going to place it right there. So I'm going to need the Mod Podge again. Okay. Just press it down and then coat the top of it. Ooh, I got some black on there. That's okay. That's another great thing about mixed media pieces, is you can't mess it up. If you get a little paint on something, it's okay. Just pretend it's supposed to be there, even if you didn't plan for it to be. Okay? Now, we're going to take our turquoise paint, because this is basically dry at this point. We're going to take this and we're going to make an outline of what our little camper is going to look like. I'm going to give you a template that you can use, but I think you could do it by hand, because it's not a very hard shape to do. But what I like to do is have in mind where my words are going to go, because I know that I'm going to have this world is not my home here, and so I want my camper to be here in this section of the canvas. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start, see, I have a line here that I can use actually if I would like to. I'm going to start at the bottom of what my camper is going to be. So look just a minute. You need to have it up high enough that you can have a wheel here. Okay, so the bottom of your camper is just going to be a straight line. I say straight, but you know what I mean. Just a line there. Okay, and then it's going to go up and round. It's going to be round here. and then it's going to come down like this. Okay, so it's basically just like a little mound that's a little bit taller in the back than it is in the front. Okay, and about right here, we're going to put a wheel, and it does not have to be a perfect circle. Don't worry about that. But your wheel's going to be here. Okay, and your hitch is going to be here. And we're just going to do this just for a basic outline to get us started. Alright, so that's our camper. I'm going to use a little bit bigger paintbrush to fill in. Use the turquoise and just fill in this whole space here. Does not have to be perfect. It's better if it's not. Okay. Now while that dries, before I can put any details on it, I'm going to work on my background some more. Okay, remember that I said we were going to use some gesso. Well, I usually use this to lighten up my background a little bit. Before I do that, I may add my butterfly on there. I think I'm going to do that next. So I'm going to need my scissors. And I'm going to cut this out. And we're going to Mod Podge it in that empty space up above the camper. And it's impossible to cut the antenna, so I just cut around, spot the head, and leave those off. You can paint them on if you really want to have them on there. Okay. Okay, so I'm going to add that up there. And as you work with this Mod Podge, you're going to get lots of glue on your hands. So if you need to, sometimes it's gonna mess up your paint if you're trying to smooth something out with the paint. So if you need to, you can always wash your hands. Just pause the video and go wash your hands if you need to. But I'm going to make a lighter area right here with my gesso to put my butterfly there. But I usually use my fingers to do this. It just makes it easier for me. I just barely tap the edge of it and then smooth it out like this. When you try to brush it on, or when I try to brush it on, it goes on so thickly that it's hard for me to control it, so it makes it better. It makes it easier for me to do it this way. Now I got turquoise paint right there. Okay, so I lightened up that area, and now this butterfly is going to show up better there rather than being on the yellow, since he has lots of yellow and orange in him. And then I can lighten up even more if I need to after he's added on there. Okay? So let's get the Mod Podge back out. if you print your butterflies on paper, wait until the ink is dry before you try to Mod Podge on your canvas, because it may cause the ink to bleed and smear. Okay, so now he's or she is glued down, and I'm going to go in with some gesso and lighten up this area right here, because I know that's where I'm going to stamp my words, and my words are going to be black, and I want to give it a light background so that I'm sure that they show up. Okay, you don't want to cover it too thickly so that you can't see your pattern paper back there, but you want to give it a good light area for your stamping. Okay. Now down here, we're going to need to make some sort of ground area where the camper is sitting. So I'm going to use some black again. Just go down here and do this. Okay. And actually this wheel needs to be black, so I'm going to go ahead and paint it. And this other little wheel also. Okay. And I'm going to make a line here and go up and over my wheel. Come back down across here. Okay. Also, now that this is dry, I'm going to add a little bit of gesso around him, a little bit more. Pick a little bit on there, it's okay. Okay. And I'm going to add some pink to the background. And I'm going to use my palette knife to do that. You don't have to use a palette knife. You can use your fingers like we did with the gesso if you would like to. But I just dip it in there like this. Get a good amount on the back. And then just pull down like this. Pull down there. Just randomly place it wherever you would like for it to be. And put a little bit on top of this butterfly also. The sides should be pretty dry. Acrylic paint dries really quickly. Right there. Okay. I'm going to let that dry. I'm going to use my stencil, and I'm going to make some black turquoise. I think I'm going to do black polka dots. So I'm going to use this stiff, I have a really stiff stenciling brush that I like a lot. You don't want to get too much on your brush because then it's going to leak through. So just load it with a little bit of paint and then dab it over that way. I know my words are going to be right here and they're going to be in black, so I don't want to put too many black things there. So I'm going to put some polka dots right up here. And do a few. Be careful that you don't lay your stencil on top of your wet paint. Okay. Put a few down here in this corner. Maybe a couple up here in this corner. And a few more right here. Okay. I'll let you get caught up. I'll give you a few minutes, and I'm going to let my little camper dry a little bit before we add some more things to him. Okay, let's work on our camper a little bit more. I'm going to use an old brush that used to be a round tipped brush, but now it's a little spread because of all the dried paint that's in there, but it's still my favorite brush. Okay, we're going to give this camper a little door right here and one little window, a circular window, and I'm going to do them in pink. Okay, so just take your brush, get lots of paint on it, and we're going to make a circle right here and a little doorway here. So we're going to make a long and skinny rectangle, but then we're going to give it a little bit of a rounded top. So the door is a long skinny rectangle with a rounded top, and the window is just a circle. Okay. Now I can't stand how clean and plain this camper looks. So what I do is I take some white gesso on my brush, and not too much of it, dab it after you get some on there, and then I go over it like this. The paint's still a little bit wet, the turquoise paint, and so it's gonna blend and just really lighten it up is what it's doing. Be careful not to touch your pink window and your pink door. So you just kind of messy it up a little bit. And there may be some spaces that you want to be lighter than others, so you would put more paint on your brush or more gesso on your brush to do that area. And see, I'm not really going up and down like this because that's going to leave streaks. I'm really kind of just scrubbing it in certain areas. Okay, that looks so much better. And I'm also going to do it on the wheels and give them like a hubcap in the middle here. And I may go back around it with some black later. I can turn my brush around and use the handle and make a dot in the middle of that wheel. Just like that. I think I'm going to add some more white up here on this top. Actually, it looks a little gray now that I did that over the tire, but that's okay. You might want to lighten up that area right there because that would be like a fender. Okay. And I'm also going to add some lighter. I'm going to mix a little bit of the black and the gesso just to lighten up this area right here. Make it gray because the side's black and the tire's black, so we need a little contrast there. Pull it on over a little bit that way. And I think I'm going to go ahead and go around the edge of this tire again with my black. Okay. And then wash your brush out. And next I'm going to take some white and work on adding some white in these pink windows and this pink door. If you don't have a palette knife, you can use a brush and just load it very heavily with the white because this is still wet and it's still very thick. So I'm just going to try to sort of mix it in there and lay that down on top of the pink. And I'm going to pick up my canvas so that I can get a better angle. Okay. And put a little bit right here too. Alright, the next thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to use the other piece of this doily and I'm going to make a fun little frilly piece to go right there on the edge of my window. Mine looks sort of like a flower right here. So I'm going to cut around just like that. I think I'm actually going to cut that off too. And then I'm going to end up putting it down right here on top in the edge of the window. Since it's so small, I'm actually going to just dip my finger in the Mod Podge and rub it on there because it's hard to hold that and use a brush on it at the same time. Okay. I'm going to place it about right there. To wipe my hands off. And while that dries, I'm going to go around my butterfly a little bit with a brush, just a smaller brush, and some of this white gesso, just to make him stand out a little bit more. And then I'm probably going to go back with my hand and blend it a little more, because I don't like these straight lines around him. Actually, I may just use the brush and scrub it in. Okay. And I'll use the blacks. I'm going to go back around him. The black, just like this. Doesn't have to be perfectly done. Just to give it somewhat of an outline. And then I think I'm going to take a dry brush, well, I say dry, a dry brush, and scrub that in too. A little bit of gray underneath it like this. Okay. Now I think I'm going to use a little bit of turquoise in this area up here, but I'm going to use my finger again, and I'm just going to mix it with some gesso to lighten it up, and then I'm just going to pull it down like this. Okay. We add a few more details to our camper. Let that dry for just a minute. I think I'm going to take the little strip that's left here from my doily that I tore, and I'm just going to make a little stripe right here on our camper. So try to find a finger that's not too dirty and dip it in the Mod Podge again. And let's see, get it lined up where I want it. Maybe about right there. Okay. And then I'm going to add a little bit of the white gesso underneath, and a tiny bit on top. just to messy it up a little bit. Okay, I'm going to take my small brush again. Actually, I'm going to try a liner brush for this. I'm going to wet it to get a good point on it. And I'm going to take some black paint and go around the edge of my camper and outline some places. And this is not going to be exact. It shouldn't be exact. It's just going to be a rough outline here. I don't make one smooth stroke. I usually drag my brush around. Okay, I'm going to make this fender a little bit more defined right there. And I'm also going to go around the door. And the window. I'm going to make a circle in the middle right here. I'm also going to add a little bit of lightly add some black lines here on the stripe. And a little bit back here. And I'll make around the edge of this. And inside a few of these little spots here. Make a few lines that make it look a little bit old again. There. And the doorknob. Do that right there. Okay, I'll let that dry for just a moment. I think I'm going to add a little bit more white in here. So, get another brush. Just when I turn my brush sideways like this, it's easier to make some messy spots. Okay, I'm going to add a little white to the tie right here, a little bit right there, a little bit down here. Just because I don't like that straight black line right there. Okay. If you use a little too much white like I just did, and take a little more turquoise on your finger and scrub it in. Okay. I'm happy with that. So let's work on our words now. Gonna need our stamps. And I've already got the word this spelled out. So I think I'm gonna try this little trick with the masking tape. And stand it up and get them all even. I think I'm going to practice before I put it on the canvas though. Find my ink pad. Let's give it a try and see what happens. My T is upside down. I'm glad I did that before I put it on the canvas. Okay, I see my H is not exactly straight, so I'm not sure if I recommend using this method or not. Okay, it worked that time. Okay, I'm going to try to get an idea of how this is all going to fit on here. So I've got this world, and then I'm going to have the word is, and then I'm going to have my big stamp not here. I'm going to have the little word my, and then home is going to be down here, and it's going to be the biggest word. So I'm actually going to start with that word and make sure I have plenty of room for it first. Give this another try. Okay, it works. So we're going to use stamp here, and I want to put it about right here in the middle. So there's the word home. And see, this H is not exactly coming together there. So what you can do is use a small brush and a tiny bit of black paint and connect those together. Now it's the full letter. And the E also needs some help. Now you can tell. Okay, so I got the word home. First word is this, and I think I'm going to put it next. You don't have to do this in this order. You can do it however you like to. I'm going to put it right here. Okay, so we've got this world. Put it over here. Now you see how important it was to have this white space here. Otherwise, if you tried to stamp on a background like this, or like this, you wouldn't be able to see your words very clearly. And this doesn't have to be straight. It doesn't have to be exact. This little method works pretty well. Okay, now I need to steal the S from the word this to make is. I'm just going to hold them together. Okay, let's see if that's the letters I want to use. Okay. Give it a test. I know I'm going to put the word not there, so I'm going to put is here. Okay. If you don't want to try to do the whole word together, you can do each letter like this. That's the N. O. T. And then we have the word my, which I'm going to put, I guess I'll put it over here. Okay, so there's your stamped letters there. And if you can see, I rocked my stamp a little bit and got some ink down here. So if that bothers you and you don't like that, you can take a brush with some white gesso and just cover that up. Just like that. Looks like I got a little bit there too. Okay. And then you can use whatever color you would like to sign your name or put your initials on the bottom of your piece. I'm going to use some pink. I usually just put my initials AH. And a little heart. And that's it. It needs to dry overnight, especially these thicker parts here where we've got a lot of paint. I don't normally use any sort of sealer or varnish on top of my mixed media pieces because a lot of times I've tried spray sealer and it will give it sort of a different look. Sometimes the paper will have a sheen to it where the areas where the paint is will not, and so it looks uneven, and I don't really like that. The paper already has the Mod Podge or the medium, that whatever medium you use to glue it down, and then you put it on top of it, and then you actually painted with acrylic paint on top of that also, and so all of that is sealed. When acrylic paint dries, it's going to be there for a long time. So there's really no need to worry about putting some sort of varnish or sealer on top of it. If you would like to hang your piece, you can sometimes just balance it on a nail or even a thumbtack if you have a wall that you want to place it on. You can also get the wire hanging kit. You can get those at Dollar General. You can get those at Walmart. It'll just be a little nail for either side of the wood here and a piece of wire that you'll attach to each nail, and then that would hang easily on something on your wall. You could, with the bigger sides like this, the thicker sides, you can just set it up like this and it will sit on a shelf if you'd like to display it that way, or an easel. That would be one way that you could display it. But I think we're done, and I hope you enjoyed yourself. I know I did. And if you enjoyed doing this and you would like to paint some more with me, you can check out my website. It's artbyamandahilburn.com, and I have other e-courses there and tutorials that you could check out and try. And I also have a Facebook page, I have an Instagram account, and I have a secret exclusive Facebook group just for people who have done my tutorials or who are working on a tutorial. I share some fun tips, and we like to share one another's current work, what you're working on right now, and it's just a fun place to encourage one another and help one another. So if you would like to, I've got a link to that at the bottom of this page where you can click on the link, and then you can request to join my group if you would like to do that. But I hope you had a lot of fun, and I look forward to seeing what you created, and I hope you'll share that with me. You can email it to me, or you can share it in our Facebook group, either one. My email address is artbyamandahilburn@gmail.com. Thanks for joining me.